Verarchy is a new legal system. It means ruled by truth. A foregone conclusion in this world is that if truth is not ruling, you probably won't like what is. The immediate thought is, whose truth? Isn't that a strange question, considering that truth is constant and unchanging, like the laws of the universe that make possible the technology for this video to be seen around the world. Truth is no respecter of persons, so it involves nothing about who's correct, and everything about what's correct. Politics is about who should rule. Verarchy is about what is rationally rightful. Great minds have continued to further refine our understanding of the laws of the universe. Technologies rely on this understanding to perform reliably throughout the world. Rationalism and empiricism brought us the age of science and mathematics, the age of technology and reason. The idea that some humans are fit to rule and dominate is a vestigial tendency from the ages of superstition and religion. Nothing has been more powerful for human advancement than the humble acknowledgement that constant and timeless truths exist, and that we can become empowered by understanding them. Indoor plumbing and electricity were followed by every imaginable appliance for human efficiency and luxury. We communicate across the world from our devices. Verarchy is rational law. Rational law uses rationalism and empiricism to find what is rightful as the law. It disallows any position of dominance or rule, including the positions of presidents, governors, and mayors. Voting is a disallowed practice, because voting is human preferences and opinions becoming legitimized force over other people. Laws are to be written by the open and worldwide community of those willing and able to adhere to the rational method that is not all that dissimilar from the scientific method. In short, Verarchy is to law as science is to wishing upon a star. Law, by its very purpose and intent, is meant to be impartial, and to disadvantage no person or group, nor favor any person or group. Only rational law can take a proposed law through all checks for universality. If something is actually true, proving universality is a major feat in establishing that it is rationally valid. Still, universality alone is not quite the complete gamut of checks, but you see where this is going. If a principle is true, it is true timelessly, unchangingly, and constantly. It is true in this place and that place, for this person and that person. This is how true principles are found. Just like in mathematics, first you find the true principles, then you can use them to find correct answers. The worldwide community of people searching to find rational laws is nicknamed the Omni-Mind. The Omni-Mind will write the laws, and will ongoingly study the effects and compliance of these laws. Verarchy being rational law, it is necessarily decentralized law, because only decentralization allows the required neutrality, openness, impartiality, transparency, objectivity, and rigid standards of rationalism and empiricism. Any centralized law becomes closed, biased, and irrational pretty quick. The standards against bias and other human propensities require that the whole world be allowed to stay involved in the continuum of open scrutiny, an omni-mind function. The industry of law is sought after by the strong men of any era. The reason that law is such a coveted industry to monopolize is that it is able to control all other industries, the flow of money, and many other aspects of people's lives. Law was never the rightful tool of monopolist elitists to favor their own and disadvantage the rest, but the human propensity to abuse power is very well known. Countless people have had their lives hindered or destroyed because of reckless legal apparatuses. Nations are reckless legal apparatuses with their restrictive borders and law monopolies called governments. Nationalism is a practice that has cost many lives. It is a tradition from the tribal and racist tendencies carrying on from the earlier humanoid. At any given time, we are not even months away from the last government overreach and tyranny of some kind, somewhere on Earth, and just as likely in so-called developed nations. The tendency for the modern human to lose themselves in the role of any authority is very high, and any considerations for what is rightful or moral become a mere annoyance to them. This cannot be allowed to continue. We have seen human folly for too long, and on too many occasions. It's not just governments, either. We have to ensure that gangs, cartels, mobs, clans, and all kinds of forces don't rise up to control others. When law is an open and competing industry, without borders or taxation, we can achieve residual elimination of these and other threats that monopolized law has not properly dealt with. In fact, decentralized law will prove many times more effective at addressing crime and terrorism because of the open competition of the various defense and police services, military, police, courts, and all other parts of law and protection will be in competition on the free and open market. Because of how decentralization and Verarchy as a whole will work, cooperation will also be foundational to all operations. Competition will be linked together with cooperation. Prove the right to make that law, or make it not at all. Most of the laws will bother someone, but they will have undergone enormous, worldwide checks and scrutiny for considerable lengths of time, and will be found to be the only rightful law out of all proposals even approximately related thereto. The global community involved with these checks, the omni mind, will have had to honestly take the law proposals down through a checklist of principles, and each of those principles will serve as a filter that may potentially block a proposed law. Even the principles themselves had to go through such rigorous measures, and perhaps even more so, which means they are cleared to be used as checks or filters. You are now starting to see how Verarchy is a different system of law than has so far been introduced. It is not congruent with most anything known in mainstream politics. Verarchy is very anti-political because remember that politics is about who will rule or decide and who is right or wrong, while Verarchy has predetermined that truth must rule and that truth tells us what is rightful. Truth is not concerned with who is right, but is concerned with what is right. Even morality has long been subjective and flaky, but rationalism sheds light on how to make morality objective. When we look for what is true and rightful, we can find it, and we can at least confine the word morality to what is rationally rightful, which means it can no longer be subjective or adjusted to customs and traditions. This higher form of morality, with its objective parameters, becomes useful in objective, rational law, and becomes a tool in the law-writing and judiciary functions of Verarchy. The use of true principles to determine what is rightful and objectively moral is akin to throwing any set of numbers at mathematical principles and churning out correct answers. Courts will be able to process all manner of complex cases using true principles, which happens to be a lot more valid than using precedent. Peace, freedom, and prosperity become more likely and widespread wherever the true principles are consistently upheld. There is one ultimate standard for checking that a true principle is useful in law. Keep in mind that something might be true and also be useful for negative and destructive ends. Truth that gets used for law must pass through the rigorous standard of what is called the ultimate pinnacle of law. This is the main goal of law, summarized as objective well-being for all, similar to the phrase, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, written in the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson. What principle keeps turning up in the United States Constitution? It's the principle of self-ownership. Think of all the work that went into founding the United States, and all the sacrifice, all of that work, but yet we have only scratched the surface of what the founders were getting at with self-ownership, and self-ownership reveals a whole slew of additional true principles. A principle is not only true because it passes checks, but also because it creates an outcome, reliably and consistently, just like the principle of multiplication produces a correct product every time. The principle of self-ownership produces peace, freedom, and prosperity every time and place it is upheld, and this can be historically examined and objectively measured. Notice that Verarchy is about finding truth and making sure the outcomes complete the authenticity. The before and after are heavily examined by the omni-mind. Unprecedented peace, freedom, and prosperity is the outcome.